Hey everyone, welcome back to another Explainer. I'm so glad you're here today because we've got a truly fascinating and honestly an incredibly urgent topic to unpack. We're going to dissect the reality of a shocking physical attack, and then, perhaps even more importantly for our daily lives, we're going to look at the massive digital shockwave of misinformation that followed right behind it. It's basically a textbook example of how quickly verified facts can just get totally overtaken by internet rumors.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll establish the facts of the Correspondents Dinner attack. Then we'll cover the suspect and charges. From there, we'll explore the online conspiracy explosion, break down the theories, and finally look at the official investigation findings.
So, Section 1. The Correspondents Dinner attack. Let's ground ourselves in the objective facts.
Just to immediately organize the absolute chaos of that evening, let's walk through this timeline. In the days prior, officials state the suspect actually traveled all the way from California to Washington, D.C. by train. Then, just hours prior, he booked a room right at the Washington Hilton, which of course was the exact venue hosting the dinner. Saturday evening rolls around, the event is happening, and he breaches a security checkpoint and fires a weapon. And then, within minutes, he's tackled and detained by law enforcement.
Now, you really have to understand the incredibly high stakes of this venue to grasp why it became such a massive global news story. The White House Correspondents Association Dinner. It isn't just any gathering. It's an annual, highly publicized black tie event. On this specific night, attendees included President Donald Trump, Vice President J.D. Vance, senior administration officials, and literally a massive pool of the nation's top journalists. The room was absolutely packed with high-profile figures, which totally explains why law enforcement immediately whisked senior officials out of the room and rushed the president off the stage.
Moving on to Section 2. The suspect and charges. Let's look at exactly who we're dealing with here.
The suspect was identified as 31-year-old Cole Thomas Allen from Torrance, California. And honestly, this is where the details get pretty chilling. Authorities reported that Allen actually left a manifesto with his family members. In that document, he gave himself a title. He called himself the Friendly Federal Assassin. He also discussed explicit plans to target senior Trump administration officials who were scheduled to be in that hotel ballroom. And Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche even noted that his targets likely included the president himself.
This definitely wasn't some spontaneous outburst. When Allen was finally subdued, authorities found he was heavily armed. We're talking a shotgun, a handgun, and multiple knives.
The immediate aftermath of that checkpoint was terrifying, but thankfully it was controlled. The suspect allegedly fired his shotgun directly at a Secret Service agent, but incredibly, the agent's tactical vest actually stopped the shot. The agent was evaluated and released from a local hospital just hours later. So looking at the concrete legal consequences, the U.S. Attorney in Washington stated Allen is expected to face charges including assault on a federal officer and using a firearm during a crime of violence. And with the investigation ongoing, potential charges like attempted assassination, those are definitely heavily on the table.
All right, Section 3. The online conspiracy explosion. This is where we pivot to the digital echo.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this staggering number, 300,000. According to data from the social media analytics firm Tweetbinder, which was reported by the New York Times, the word staged appeared in more than 300,000 posts on X by midday Sunday, just hours after the attack. Literally before all the facts were even collected by police, hundreds of thousands of users across the political spectrum on X, Facebook, TikTok were already flooding the internet with claims that the entire harrowing event was just completely fake.
Section 4. Breaking down the theories. Let's dismantle some of these viral rumors with actual facts. The first major theory centered around a Fox News broadcast. This one racked up over 5.6 million views on X, claiming the network intentionally cut the feed of their White House correspondent Aisha Hasni to hide a pre-planned false flag. This whole idea was fueled by her mentioning on air that a colleague's husband told her, "You need to be very safe," right before the broadcast went black. But the reality? Hasni herself clarified that her cell phone signal just dropped. I mean, the Hilton is known for having areas with incredibly poor reception. And that ominous warning to be very safe, she confirmed he was simply expressing general, everyday concern for her safety in a crazy world, not, tipping her off to some insider plot. Okay, here's another incredibly viral claim. Social media users shared posts and memes suggesting Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt actually knew about the attack beforehand. Why? Because in a pre-dinner interview, she literally said the words, "Shots will be fired." I know, it sounds damning out of context, right? But the reality is completely mundane. The Correspondents' Dinner traditionally features a comedy roast. Leave It was just using a super common metaphor to describe the rhetorical jokes the president was preparing to deliver at the podium. A simple figure of speech was instantly weaponized into a vast conspiracy meme.
And then there was the ballroom theory, which pulled in over 8.9 million views on just a single post. This theory suggested the entire shooting was staged simply to build public support for the president's plan to construct a new ballroom at the White House. The so-called proof they pointed to was that the president mentioned the ballroom in a press conference and a social media post shortly after the incident. People claimed this rapid messaging meant it had to be coordinated. In reality, modern political messaging is just incredibly fast. Taking a real-world crisis and tying it back to a pre-existing political talking point happens constantly in Washington. But the internet immediately framed this speed as evidence of a staged event.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how deep the rabbit hole goes. Theories spiraled into massive geopolitical narratives. Some claimed it was a false flag operation designed to distract from international tensions, pointing to videos of figures like Dana White allegedly refusing to duck, claiming this somehow proved insiders knew they were safe. Others pushed an unverified Israel connection, pointing to alleged search history data. And interestingly, these unverified images were heavily amplified by Russian and Iranian state media accounts, deliberately pouring gasoline on the fire of American domestic confusion.
Finally, Section 5, Official Investigation Findings. Let's re-anchor ourselves in the facts.
So, here is the absolute crucial point. Despite the millions upon millions of views, the countless memes, and the endless viral speculation across all social media platforms, officials found absolutely zero evidence to support any of these staged or false flag claims. Law enforcement stated that the suspect's writings focused entirely on his own personal motivations. There was no grand conspiracy, there was no foreign involvement, there was just a heavily armed individual acting on his own manifesto.
Which leaves us with something incredibly important to think about. See, this explainer isn't just about what happened at a hotel in Washington, D.C. It's about how we consume information. When over 300,000 posts shouting staged can completely overtake verified physical facts in just a matter of hours, we have a real problem on our hands. So I want to leave you with this question to ponder. When the very next breaking news event happens, and you and I both know there will be a next time, how do we protect our own understanding of reality? How do we keep our critical thinking skills sharp amidst the noise? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Stay curious, stay critical, and I'll catch you on the next one.